玄武神話玄武神話一刀両断ぶった切れDogouken Gekido!
Hello YouTube, this is Shirley426, and today we have the review of the P-Bandai exclusive or P-Bandai exclusive SHF Kamen Rider Buster. Now, this was not exactly planned to be reviewed today because I had something else in mind to review. However, there was this app that I checked time to time where it's basically like an eBay of Korea where people sell their own stuff. And there was someone selling this figure, which is a figure that I missed the pre-orders because it was sold out. He was selling it for a very good price because usually other sellers would kind of jack up the price like by maybe 30 to 40%. But this guy was selling it for a reasonable price, so I decided to get it right away. So this rider, he is Kamen Rider Buster, which is from the Kamen Rider Saber series. What I like about this character specifically is that, number one, his weapon was very unique. So it's something that we don't usually see in the Kamen Rider franchise. Not too often. I mean, there has been some traces, but not too often. Number two is that this character is considered as like a veteran style character, because usually in Power Rangers, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider series, the main characters or the usual typical type of characters that we would see is usually like they're, young people, like maybe high school students or maybe college students or maybe people in their mid 20s or late 20s. This guy is actually a veteran where he's in his like mid or late 30s and actually has a son, and he actually in the series he would actually teach or guide the new generation swordsmen / riders. So yeah, I really liked about that aspect. Anyway, so here is the box. Let's get him right off the way, and then let's get him off the stand. So and this guy, when I ordered it from the seller, I was expecting it to maybe arrive at best maybe next week, but this thing arrived way earlier than I expected, so which is why I'm reviewing it. Now, right off the bat, the moment I took off, or basically got the figure out of the box, I was very surprised by its form factor. It was very bulky, it was kind of a bit chunky, and you can actually feel the powerful defensive design here. The main reason is that usually before this guy, like most riders would have like a typical style, like body format. It would be usually the slim, long type body format. So here it is. So this one is like, according to D Amazing, is that this is actually a new mold where they kind of made the legs and arms a little bit longer, but still, even the past ones, you should get the general idea where it's kind of this is kind of a typical format. Even in Kamen Rider 01, this would be like something similar to this basically. So when I compare with these two, you can definitely tell like this guy is much more bulkier and heavier at the same time. So which is why it actually surprised me a lot. Anyway, so yeah, let's get on to the review. So, right off the box, you should have the fist hands attached right away. So that's that, other than the rider. So here are your other accessories. So number one, here we have a few hands. So here are the weapon holding hands. You'll be using these pretty often for left and right. We have your open style hands. Also for left and right, you'll be using these pretty often as well, because this figure has a few flaws. I mean, I was really happy to get this figure, but this figure does have a few flaws in terms of like the articulation and certain design choices. So I'll get into that later. And here we have his main weapon, the Buster Sword / the Dogouken Gekido. Let me check if that was the correct, unless I said that backwards. So this is the Dogouken Gekido. I would like to mention from the past, I believe all the riders I have reviewed are mostly that they have a belt, and that belt is the transformation device. In this case, this rider, this sword is his transformation device and weapon at the same time. That's kind of the theme, most of the themes in the Kamen Rider Saber series, except for the main, like except for like certain riders. Most other riders, like the secondary, third, like Kamen Rider Kenzan, Buster, those type of characters, they would have their sword as the transformation device. So here's that, and here we have the One to Ride book. There's no stickers as usual, but I'm pretty sure there are people out there who are printing or just making their own version. So, and you can take it out as well. Once again, I do wish they would have given us a closed up version of this, but oh well. And yeah, I'm going to take this out for now because there's another thing I need to explain. Here is and yeah, once again, we have the Buster Sword, which these type of weapons are kind of uncommon. I mean, we had some in the past, but not too often. And here is this part, which I was not expecting. So you can actually plug this onto the back here, which is a pretty neat, you know, small aspect here. So you can, I believe it's this one, yeah. You can take this part off and then swap out with this part. And if you remember, when I took out the Wonder Ride book, and that leaves a small hole inside there, you can now plug this peg here onto that hole and make it look like the sword is hanging on from the back. So I do suggest you do this separately, not while on the back, but maybe as a separate piece, but still. And you can get the effect where he's actually holding, or he stored the sword onto his back. This is something we don't see too often in the Kamen Rider series, in the or to be specific, the SHF Kamen Rider series. I mean, we did have cases where you can store the sword onto your waist, but not onto the back. So once again, very nice small detail. So I'm going to take this off because I will have to say, if there are any fragile parts here, number one would be, I would say the number one would be this part. And it's not that it's actually breaking, but I would say this is one of those parts where it could, you know, break unexpectedly. So yeah. Alright, so now let's get on to the review. So let's start from the top to bottom. So articulation wise, like, certain parts are okay. Problem is, there are other certain areas that just basically, you know, kind of ruins the whole fun of the figure. So anyway, so let's start with the head. The head, definitely loving the look here. You can see, like, I love the armor design. This guy, obviously each swordsman slash rider in the series has a element. This guy is obviously a land slash ground. So yeah, land, ground, rock, whatever you can think of. So yeah, the head can go down that much and then up that much as well. So up not so much, and obviously 360 not too possible because obviously number one, this guy is a human, and then I think the neck joint is in an angle, which is why it doesn't allow you to go more than this. But I think I can force it, but once again, I'm not gonna force it. There's no reason to do so. Alright, and then let me just back up a little bit, and then let me just change the angle here. There we go, sorry about that. And then you do have a nice body ab crunch going on here, and then it's moving side to side, is still there. Now once again, one of the major issues that I had with the SHF Kamen Rider Saber, or even Caliber, was the shoulders, because usually back then, like, the shoulder armor here would be actually attached to the arm, like this. When you move the arm, the shoulder armor pad also moves. But in this case, this other side, this part is connected to the main body, and this guy, these shoulder parts, which you would expect to move together with the arm, but no, they're connected to the main body, and this causes a huge flaw, a huge, like, you know, flaw in the figure. So number one, if I were to put this sword onto the back, the arm slash hand cannot reach the handle when it's on the back, because in order to do so, you have to go backwards. But because of the shoulder armor, it's blocking the way. You can't go more than this. So yeah, I can flip this up. Okay, so I flipped it up, but once again, it's blocking the way again. So there's no physical way for this figure to actually reach towards the back handle. So that's a huge major flaw. Number two, other than this, the shoulder movement. So you can move, you still have your slightly typical forward and backward movement. Problem is, because of the bulky design, it doesn't move as much. So it's kind of impossible to do the dual two-handed wielding pose, which this rider does all the time in the series. Yeah, I can kind of replicate it. I mean, I can kind of fake it, but there's no physical way to actually hold the sword with both hands unless I'm doing something wrong. If you've seen the pictures, I did it, but once again, it's more like faking it at the same time. So that is a huge major issue. And so that, I would say, that was the major flaw in the figure. Other than that, I have no, like, you know, nothing else to talk about. And on this part, like, these parts also move on their own for some reason on the shoulder. So yeah, interesting design. Other than that, we still have your typical you know, movement. So because of shoulder, those 360 is not possible, but the lower arm can go 360, and then you do have like a 90 degree bend here. And I would like to mention, for those who don't know, the arm guard, or these gauntlets looking things, are different designs on each arm here. So yeah. Hands are your typical SHF style figure arts hand, where the ball joint is on the arm and the hole is on the hand. So just keep that in mind. Now, body moving side to side. Now, I think for this reason, I think it's either the lower bottom, the belly section is just very stiff here. It barely moves, but I can still move the top body with no problem as well. So no big deal. And this guy is all about power and defense. He has very low speed and jumping ability. So yeah, like fast moving poses is not for this guy. Alright, and now the legs. You still have your side swivel going on here. The only issue that you might have with the legs here is that these parts here are just popping out. And once again, I think these would be the second part that you should be careful about for breaking or snapping off. So just be careful and you should be good to go. You still have your nice side swivel here. And unlike Kamen Rider Saber or other riders where they would have these holsters on the side here, this rider, I love the fact that, and I was never aware of this, is that he has these on the back side, so which does not affect any movement. That is brilliant. And then, so I think this was also mentioned in the manual, where you can kind of pull out the legs to get out a little bit more mobility, so you can move forward instead of like colliding with that as well. So here is the fully pulled out version, and then bend wise, this is all you can go because the design / armor is colliding. And going to the side, I would not suggest because you don't really get a wide spread going on here. Feet wide, you still have your 360 twist for, although not possible for a human, you still have a decent pivot, and definitely I love the metallic, not color, but the like very heavy look on the design here on the feet here, and then you get a nice toe bend. Alright, so we've seen the basics of the figure. So, you can see this guy is slightly lacking in terms of articulation, even in certain areas that should be pretty good because, like, if you've seen this guy in action, you should know what I mean. But still, it is slightly, I was expecting that to, basically hold the sword properly in most times, but oh well. But still, since we've seen the basics of the figure, I'll be right back with one final demonstration, and we will call it a day. Okay, I'm back. So here we have the typical pose that you can kind of pull off, where he's holding or making it look like he has two hands holding the sword. So the handle on the hand works perfectly fine, but it's just the fact that with the short range of articulation of mount on the shoulders, you can barely make him hold the handle with two hands. So I barely made it work out, but still, this is as far as you can go. Of course, depending on how you move the angle, you can do kind of something like this, or maybe you can make it look like you're faking it, but still, yeah. So you can still pull off the poses, but it might be a little bit tricky. You need to work your way around a lot on this figure. Anyway, and other than that, this rider does not really have the rider kick type finisher because his weapon, as I mentioned, he has this very powerful finisher move. So yeah, it's basically like he charges up the sword and then he slashes in one go. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the review of the P-Bandai exclusive SHF Kamen Rider Buster. So once again, if you're a big fan of the character like me, then you will enjoy this figure. But if you're like, there are also people out there who buys the figure to do all sorts of cool poses. This is not that type of figure, if you ask me. So just be aware of that aspect. Anyway, thank you for watching the review. If you guys got any questions or requests in the comment below, I still have more stuff to buy and build and make reviews out. So please stay tuned. Until then, see you guys next time.